Of the scriptures I had a problem with growing up is in Romans 4. It says, and Abraham staggered not at the promise. Used to really affect me. Abraham staggered not at the promise. Abraham staggered. So you didn't stagger. You didn't stagger. It wasn't a stagger, sir. You fell. Okay? We have an entire tribe from your fall. When the Bible was going to record this thing in Romans 4, you would think that Abraham never made a mistake. This was Abraham who asked God, God, how am I sure that Eliezer is not the one that would inherit my and God says, come outside, look at the stars, count the stars. As much as the stars are, so would your descendants be. But painted a picture for him, and God told him, I'm your God, I will fulfill it, I will bring it to pass. This same Abraham, wife said one thing, my guy, straight. And Bible records in Romans 4 that he staggered not. That he staggered not. Yes, Esau made one tiny mistake. One tiny mistake like this. Called him an infidel. Called him in the New Testament. He was literally insulted. I was looking at Abraham. Staggered not. What's Agar? Staggered not. Because when God defines you, He doesn't define you by what you've done. He defines you by what He has made you to be. Holiness is not something that you achieve. Holiness is what you are made. Ephesians 1:3, I think, it says, I write this to believers who have been made holy. Hebrews 10:14 says, having made perfect them that are being made holy. Holiness is something that we are made and is what He calls us. So Abraham, even though he staggered in the Old Testament, but because as long as he trusted God enough to perpetuate the line that Jesus came from, when it was going to be defined after Jesus, through the eyes of Jesus, he staggered not. But Esau, who made a mistake, the mistake he made was that he refused Jesus to be born through his line. He said, what is that to me? He was called non-entity. Look at the lives of those people that you think staggered not. That's why you don't look at anybody and just covet their lives or their mantle. Hello, the Holy Spirit is the mantle you need. Jesus is all the mantle you need. People are going through their own journeys, their own personal, private journeys, but God is a God that covers His children. That's why you can't covet people, not because what they have outside is not glittering or attractive, but because in the entirety of it, you don't know what's going on in the end, but you know you, and the Holy Spirit knows you, and you know the Holy Spirit, and you know Jesus is the only perfect one. Why not just trust Him? What I'm trying to tell you is, no matter what it is that you have done in the past, or no matter what it is that you're struggling with, when Jesus is going to talk about you, you'll be, behold, my darling daughter, perfect, holy in all our ways. You'll be looking at yourself that Jesus will say, I don't know what you're talking about. I see beauty. I see a spotless individual who trusted me enough to believe me, even though she never saw the real cross that I died on. Jesus would celebrate you and call you names. And that's one of the greatest prayers that you can pray as a believer, as a beloved son, is, Lord, help me to see me the way you see me. Because when you see yourself the way God sees you, religion will irritate you, because religion calls you by your weakness and identifies your weakness. But Jesus calls you as He who staggered not. Even though you've made mistakes and you've staggered and you stuttered, He staggered not. Because He didn't stagger, He did. But because it is what God says He is. Say to me, only a father can name a child. Your Father has called you spotless. Your Father has called you perfect. Your Father has called you holy. Your Father has called you beloved. Your Father has called you worthy to be loved. Your Father has died for you. Your Father rose for your justification. Your Father has sanctified you. Your Father has made you His own. Your Father has given you His signet ring. Your Father has given you His DNA. You are what your Father says you are. It's high time you believe what your Father calls you. It's high time you believe what your Father has done for you. It's high time you rest in it. It's high time you come to that place where you don't see yourself by what has happened, the experiences that has happened, but by what your God, your Father has called you. And listen to me, your husband says he loves you. Your husband, now 54 verse 5, for my Maker is my husband, the Lord of hosts is His name. Your husband calls you beloved. Your husband calls you faithful. Your husband calls you perfect. Your husband calls you beautiful. He says you are perfect, my love, and there's no stain in you. Walk like the bride who the husband loves. Walk like the prince who the King loved. Walk like the son who our Father loved.